Hello everyone. We're back here on Gelvin Valley, continuing the harvest, field number 38, the wheat harvest. We'll see if in this episode we can finish the harvest in this field. It seems like I've spent a lot of time in this field. I'm kind of ready to move on from it. Probably on account of the number of times my hired help has chased the equipment off the field and done damage to it, and I've had to go chase it at the place where the equipment is reclaimed. Oh, but such is life. You pay for the help you get, and evidently I'm not paying enough. Take one more round around the field here. Ooh, and hopefully I can stay out of the way of our horseplay driver as he grabs the grain. I mentioned in the previous video that earlier this evening, before I worked on these, I had made a couple lone oak videos. I'm looking forward to doing, I think, a little bit of a series on that. I don't know how that's all gonna work. I'm still trying to figure out this YouTube thing. Still not sure just what it's gonna look like or how I'll continue with it here. Not that anybody particularly cares. I think I'll do it as long as I'm having a ball doing it, and I don't care which version of the game it's in. But I got a couple of those going. But before that, and I know I mentioned it in previous videos on here, um, before that, tonight I attended the graduation, the 8th grade graduation of one of my sons. The day before that, of course, was the graduation of my older son, who graduated from high school and is looking forward to going to college, university, whatever, and starting his career. But tonight was with my second son, who's a little bit younger. Still real proud of him and his accomplishments in getting to this point. And, some of these young people, and I think of that, this would have impacted my son too. And I know anybody that hears this, there's nobody on the planet that was untouched by the COVID epidemic in some fashion. And I think of what has been robbed from these kids, in their growing up years that I never had when I was their age. And they even commented on it tonight. There was over a year they were out of school, they had distance learning, and kudos to the teachers for doing the best that they could to make that work. All I know is it about broke my second son in half. My older son seemed like he could handle it pretty well. My younger son is quite a bit more social in his temperament. He obviously wasn't made like his dad. I mean, I'm an introvert, and I don't really like big crowds of people, and you'll find me on the edge of the crowd kind of looking in, but I'm not a huge participator in it. Well, that's not my youngest son. He's much more social than what I am. So when he had to stay home and stare at this computer screen and do work online, well, I mean, to be frank, he basically was failing. And it's a wonder he didn't fail an entire grade in there. It just was brutal. So we were very thankful, as was he, when the schools could open back up again, he and all his classmates, and he could have the true experience of that a child gets at school with in-person learning. And I'm sure he wasn't the only one alone. It's every kid matures at a different pace, and some can maybe handle the responsibility of learning a little more on their own or when nobody's watching. Not all kids are able to do that. So he had some awesome teachers that worked with him. I mean, I admire their patience. I know my patience was tried to the breaking point. It's I remember that back then. I was self-motivated at some point. I remember I don't know when it happened. I almost think it was just slightly ahead of where my younger son was, where just like a switch snapped in my head that, with a little bit of effort and work, I can actually get a decent grade, and it won't be that hard to do. So, and I'm sure that revelation comes to other kids, and I know some are never, some kids just aren't um, created for the academic setting. They work more with their hands or that kind of thing. But I know for my son, he simply is more social, so he needed to have that environment in order to learn. And I don't totally understand that because that isn't how I'm made, but that's how he's made. So I was just thankful his mom and I were glad when he could go back to school, work on his schooling, and tonight he even graduated 8th grade with honors. So he was able to turn all that around and turn it into something good. And so I'm really happy with him and pleased, he was able to do this. So I know all of us, we want to see our kids succeed, and it hurts as a parent when our kids are hurting or not able to do what even they know or that would like to do, but it's just difficult because of, some external challenges or whatever. And this maybe is minor. I mean, my goodness, when I think of some of the challenges some other kids have had, if it's broken homes and divorce and, all those things that are in the world that happen to people that impact children in a major way. But this, I really like the school our kids went to. It's a country school. We're not even in their district, but they accepted our kids to be a part of their school, and I just feel really grateful to to have been able to go there. It's just a real quality group of teachers and parents that care, and that's really helpful for a learning environment, obviously. So tonight it was kind of fun. I've never heard my younger son give a speech, and so he was kind of nervous. He dressed up real nice, shirt and tie, the whole 9 yards, and he got up there and he delivered his speech. And for his introverted dad, it's no small feat to try to get up and speak in front of a group of people. I mean, I can do it when I have to. Sometimes, I have to for my occupation, but it isn't something, I just look forward to doing. He said he was a little bit nervous, but I think he did it like a champ, as did all of his peers. A number of them shared their experiences or whatever, and it's just really interesting seeing young people, seeing their perspective, remembering, when I was their age, and trying to remember where my head was. And it's just amazing to me to see the difference in maturity and development in adolescent kids. And I kind of remember that, but just looking at the kids there tonight, I mean, you can take this for how it sounds, but there was a young lady there who looked like she could have passed for someone who was a freshman in college. Let me just put it that way. She, well, she looked all grown up, if I can just put it that way. But of course, we know that just because someone looks that way on the outside, that doesn't mean that they're necessarily all grown up or mature on the inside. So, and I don't know this particular young lady, so I can't comment on that. And then you have all the way from that, and then there was a young man who looked like he was still about in the 4th grade. He was short. His voice was still high. It hadn't begun to deepen yet. And part of me feels bad for a kid like that. I hope when he goes into high school that nobody picks on him or that kind of thing or bullies him. I know that can happen. But to me, I mean, my fascination, I guess, is just seeing the differences. In terms of how one kid develops more quickly than others. And why is that? Only God knows. He's the one that made us and dictates how that happens. Now, I wonder what's going on down here. Looks like they're having a tea party with my combine and the trailer. Good grief. Yeah, he, oh, okay. Let me see if I can get it in there. You know, I think it's the slope on this field that plays with this and, all right, makes it so it's kind of difficult to get it in the wagon, even though the script says it's close enough. Now, tractor, I see no reason why you need to pass. And I suppose you're going to park right in front of me in the crop. Yeah, you know what? We're just going to move him out of the way before continuing. Get him out of the road. Another smart horseplay driver, which we're becoming very used to. There's the jerk in our header. Boy, I wish I could figure that one out. It's probably something in the XML I need to fix. Be nice to get rid of that little jerk. Get our combine going. We'll go back to our tractor here. Maybe swing around so we can see what's going on. Yeah, we should be able to finish this maybe by the end of this episode. Get sent over to the next field. We'll be on the home place at that point. And almost through the wheat harvest. We can get on to something else here, which everybody's probably saying, hallelujah. And you know, I'm thinking tonight on graduation of my son, when I think back of 7th and 8th grade and middle school, doesn't seem like I remember a whole lot. You know, and I was commenting here the other night, remembering my high school, remembering some memories there and some things that I did that maybe were different from our kids. You know, it's amazing how everybody is just different and the things they enjoy or pursue in life. And, you know, growing up, my father, I mean, this is just the strange things of life. He's allergic to fish in terms of eating them. He even has to be careful how he handles them because if he handles them too much, it will, he'll have an allergic reaction. And basically, the allergic reaction is anaphylactic shock. His throat will constrict and he'll have trouble breathing. But guess what his favorite pastime is? It's fishing. I mean, go figure. He enjoys fishing and hunting. And as a kid, you know, I and my 4 brothers, dad would drag us out on the boat or into the forest, you know, to take us hunting or whatever. And I really can't say that I enjoyed it all that much. You know, my memories of it is, you know, like in the fall, picture a very rainy Saturday morning. You know, you're done with school for the week, and at 5 a.m., Dad pulls you out of bed. You hear the rain coming down. You pull on heavy clothes. You go have breakfast, and that part's okay. And then you head out in the brush, and the rain pours on you the entire time. Meanwhile, you were too young to carry a weapon, you know, to do any hunting. But, you know, when you're young, what you would typically do, the style of hunting we did, is you would beat the brush. And by beating the brush, you would just walk through it and see if there were any animals in there. You could shoot it out, and someone, you know, with a weapon could kill them, and what have you. And don't get me wrong, it's a good to stroll in the woods, but it just seems like so much of the time it was wet and cold, and invariably I'd be out there tromping around, and I'd lose a boot, and my sock would come out, and it was miserable. At least that's kind of how I saw it. Now, some of my brothers saw it quite a bit differently. Yeah, and fishing was kind of the same way. Fishing to me is great, you know, if you're catching fish. Well, it seems like a good lot of the time you're not catching anything. You're just sitting there in the weather, and it may be hot, it may be cold, it may be raining, snowing, whatever, where you go, and you may or may not be having any luck getting a fish. So I've kind of always thought those things were boring. Obviously, people feel differently, especially my father. So when I started my family, I'm neither a fisherman nor a hunter, but I all of a sudden realized I got two boys who are fishermen and hunters both. That's what they enjoy doing, or one of the things they enjoy doing, and it's totally not me. And I wonder how in the world did they pick that interest up? It's just kind of how they were created, I guess, but they sure didn't get it from me. And it's just kind of interesting how that goes. It trickles into school too in terms of maybe what kind of coursework they're interested in or career path and all that. And it's a good thing we're all different, right? We all can do different things and help one another out in this life. My goodness, if everybody was accountants, we'd have a lot of problems. So I don't know. These are just some of the areas where my mind goes when I go to a graduation and see all these young people, all that potential sitting there. It just makes me remember back. And in high school, I uh, I did a couple sports. My sons haven't and daughters haven't done any sports at all. Um, one of my daughters showed animals at the county fair. She enjoyed horses, so she got into team penning and some of those exercises you can do with the horse. So she really enjoyed that. And I guess they consider that a type of athletics, but I don't know. I'm kind of old school. To me, athletics is when you're running and jumping and throwing something, and if you're riding a horse, that isn't that. But I think it was part of the athletic program. But she's really the only one that did some of those extracurricular type things kind of outside the academics. One of my sons has a really small business with beekeeping. I want to talk a little more about that at some point. I don't know that I'll do it here, but that's something I never tried. So he's had that going on in school, and they've taken mechanic shop. I'm not a mechanic. I'm not gifted that way. But so if something breaks around here, it's probably going to be my teenage son that can fix it. If it's vehicular related versus the old man. That's a difference with my dad too. Growing up on the farm, he learned a lot more about mechanics than what I did. But it didn't pass to me. I didn't have the interest, the aptitude, whatever for it. But when I was in high school, I mean, the sports that I did, not that anybody particularly cares. I did a little track. I think I did 2 years of track. I did spring soccer. I did that once, and that's pretty well it. I tried out for basketball one time. I think it was my junior year, and I got this wild idea that somehow I can make the team. Oh no, I was competing with kids who had been holding a basketball. They practically were born with one in their hands, and they were just much more talented than I will ever be. But sure got some good workouts in, but didn't make the time on that. I think I spent a little time on the football team. I never really uh, played it, um, other than just kind of sandlot type stuff. But what I did do is I spent a season with the team and was, they call it a manager, and really that's just taking care of the laundry, taking care of drinking water, hauling equipment, that kind of thing for the sake of the team. So it's trying to be helpful, but it wasn't in a playing capacity. So the ones I did play was track, and what the events I did there was more the sprints, that kind of thing, like the 100-meter dash, the 100, the 200. I occasionally did a 400. That race was a killer. Um, I also did a couple relays, 4x400, 4x100. So I tended to do the running events in there with the team. I did that 2 years, but I gotta say I absolutely hated it. And to this day, whenever I'm near a track, I mean, the way I've described it is kind of like PTSD. I was so anxious during that time. And, the coaches, I mean, like good coaches, they try to emphasize the team nature of the sport and all that. But I just couldn't see it that way. You know, as a runner, when you're there at the 100-meter dash, it's just you. There's nobody else there, and yeah, your team's going to cheer you on, but you're either going to win that race or you're not. And I know there's a point system. You can win points for your team or whatever, but for me, it just seemed too individual. You know, the ones that truly were a team in nature, you know, of course, would be the relays. And if there was a race, you know, that I enjoyed more, it was the relays because it was more team oriented. So I think I did it in track my freshman year, and then I did it again my junior year. But you know, I did the best I could. Um, but I really wouldn't say I excelled at it. I earned a letter, varsity letter, but otherwise, completely unremarkable. As are most of us. That's why they say there's averages, right? I was just average. One sport I did have a lot of fun with, though, was spring soccer. A number of people in my friend group at the time played soccer, and I don't know if anybody from Europe or the UK is hearing this. I realize when you all say football, you're referring to what we call soccer here, and yeah, America has it all mixed up. I don't know how football got its name. It sure seems intuitive that if you're kicking the ball, that it would be appropriate to call it football, but for whatever reason, we call it soccer over here. Go figure. Um, so anyway, I played spring soccer a little bit with my friends, and I guess one reason I enjoyed it thoroughly was because I was absolutely no good at it. I mainly wanted to do it just to be around my friends, and you know, I went to the practices with them. I threw my heart into it. I tried to do the best I could, but I only did it once in my life. And some of these boys, you know, that I was playing with had, you know, they'd basically done it their whole life, so they could do things with the ball that it didn't seem like you should be able to do. You know, I remember one kid, he had kind of worked on this technique to where, you know, for me, I had to keep the ball in front of me at all times. Well, sometimes things happen and the ball gets behind you. And there's a technique you can do with your feet where you can reach behind you and grab it and kick it up over your head and it's back in front of you again. I don't know, maybe it was just some circus trick he was doing. But it looked really cool when he was able to do it. I know I couldn't do it. So they didn't let me play that much at it, nor did I expect to. I mean, I wasn't any good at it, so I think they let me go in a couple times, and if I screwed up too many things, well, they'd pull me out and they'd let the men come in and fix things up. But I did really enjoy it. Okay, I'm gonna set the brake. It appears we are done with this field. So that is a good thing. I'm gonna take a picture of that right there, maybe for a thumbnail. I don't know, I'll figure something out. So, let me go up and get my combine, and we're about full here anyhow. And I see we're coming right up on another half hour already, so this is good. We'll finish up this field, and that'll about do it for this episode, and then we'll be down to two. Be on to the home place and get her all done. Yeah, track was really hard on me. I just, you know, whether it's anxiety, nervousness, you know, when something isn't fun or enjoyable, why do it? And I remember, you know, I did some track when I was younger and, you know, had some success at it when I was a younger kid. And I remember one summer, you know, there was some I think it was called the Junior Olympics or whatever it was, where kids of a certain age you could go to these meets and compete and against other kids your age and whatnot. And eventually, I think you could travel to meets in other states and continue competing even on a national level. Well, I never did that. I think I could have gone on to it because I was winning some sprints that I was part of, but then the family would have had to travel, and that would have been over the top too much just for a kid. But I remember there was times I'd just be so nervous before these races, and my dad, I guess you could say, was my trainer, and I don't even know if I properly thanked him looking back on those years. Would you believe this? He even made me a set of starting blocks. If you've ever seen sprints, these guys push off of starting blocks to help jumpstart the race quicker. My dad made some for me out of wood, and he bolted them up and put them together, and which is a really neat thing to do for your son. But the truth of the matter is I couldn't wait for the season to end because I just hated doing it. But I remember one time he had a talk with me, and my dad wasn't a sports fanatic. He wasn't trying to live some dream he never got to. Truth be told, it took a ton of his time that probably would have been better spent elsewhere. But he told me one time why he was pushing me on this. He said, you've had a little bit of success here, and I know this is something you aren't real wild about doing. But he said, when you face real life, there are going to be things you don't always like to do, but to be a man, you have to do them, even if you don't like to do them. And he says, I don't want you to just quit and learn that when life gets tough, that's what you do is quit. He says, I want you to see this through and take it to the end. So that was his motivation in pushing me. And I got to say, we only did it that one summer. After that, he no longer pushed quite that way. I think he had made his point, and hopefully I learned the lesson. I try not to be a quitter. I guess we all do, right? On those things that are important to us, none of us want to be quitters. But I see what he said, whether it's there's a lot of tough things in life. Maybe it's our job, maybe it's a marriage, and anymore it's just so easy to say, well, I quit, and you walk out and you divorce, and that just leaves a lot of problems in its wake, especially if children are involved. It Yeah, it isn't optimum to be a quitter. And that's, I think, something good about sports that can teach young people those kinds of lessons. And I gotta say, I appreciate it from my dad. So, well, I look at the clock again and I can't hardly believe it, but another whole half hour has gone by. So, I think well, and I got this combine here dutifully working up this field and filling up. I think I'm gonna terminate the episode here, and thank you, everybody, for watching. Appreciate you taking a look as I make all these silly episodes and try to keep talking the whole time. That's a challenge for this introverted accountant. So thanks for watching and spending some time here. Have a great day. Take care. Bye bye.